The challenge for the Labour Party in the coming months is to begin the process of developing new policy for the next general election. We will very much want to work with the mutual sector to frame our policies for the third sector. One particular priority that I will want to develop with the sector and with others is how we can build a bigger social finance market to help social enterprises, new mutuals, new cooperatives expand and develop their ambitions to help our economy and our society and our communities grow.
Well, I think the really interesting thing when looking at the recent data about the mutual sector as contained in the Mutual's yearbook is that although we're in the middle of quite a fierce economic crisis, supposedly the worst economic crisis in 80 years. You wouldn't know this from looking at the data and the numbers that are coming from the mutual sector itself. There's lots of areas where employment has completely held up. It's been steady over the course of the last 3 years. The membership of mutuals has been rising. The revenue of the mutual sector has been rising. It's now at just over £110 billion a year, and employment is over 1 million people in the mutual sector. And there are, even more interestingly, there are some areas of the mutual sector which are actually really doing increasingly well and have been doing very well over the last 3 years as this recession or economic crisis has been playing out. The cooperative sector has grown by 21% since 2008. Building societies are taking in the first half of 2011, building societies took 18% of savings deposits in the UK, which was only 6% at the same time of the previous year. So I think it's very interesting that the mutual sector is doing quite as well as it is at the moment. I think it partly reflects on a groundswell of public opinion and political interest in mutuals as offering an alternative to the conventional way of managing companies, managing assets, risks and employees. And I think people are beginning to ask questions about whether profit maximisation, as PLCs have to promote, whether profit maximisation is necessarily the best basis on which to run companies, banks, insurance companies, and also whether control by Whitehall and ownership by the state is necessarily the best basis on which to deliver public services and to manage public goods and community assets. And I think the fact that mutualism has grown in profile as a basis to deliver public services is in many ways to be welcomed. Although I do think we have to remember that there's also a lot that mutuals offer in the private sector and in the financial sector in particular. And I just think it's a really exciting moment right now when you look at how successfully mutuals are being run and are growing at the moment at a time when lots of other types of company and lots of other types of financial entities are in such trouble. And I really think this is a moment that the mutual sector can and will seize.
My name's Sion Whellens. In my day job I work as part of the creative team at Calvert's, which is a worker cooperative communications design and production company. And I've been talking this morning to the Mutuo conference about International Year of Cooperatives 2012. So it's a UN International Year to celebrate and promote cooperative development globally. And about the initiatives in the UK to absolutely make the most of this possibly once in a lifetime opportunity to put out a really strong message to the general public as well as to policymakers and to business people about the strength and potential of the cooperative model to potentially change the way business is done and to meet people's needs for their cultural, political, social and economic needs, food, shelter, paid work. And in the UK, Cooperatives UK is a membership organisation. It's the apex organisation for the cooperative movement. And it's been working very closely with our members and particularly with the cooperative group and cooperative retail trading group to develop some really strong branding and messaging that our members can pick up and use in their own communications to kind of ride the wave that we're hoping to push out there over 2012. And in fact, the UN year actually kicks off next week, the official launch. So in the UK, we're putting together designing and putting together packs of resources. There'll be video, there'll be leaflets, there'll be badges, there's a very strong mark called 2012 Make It Cooperative, which we're hoping our members and supporters will use in their own public communications. So that's where we're going. The website goes live today, and this is the URL, uk.coop/2012. If you want to find out more about what we're doing during IYC 2012 in the UK.
I've just been on a platform talking about capital requirements within the cooperative and mutual sector. And some of the things I was trying to say were that we have a good history, but that we're not treated fairly in terms of the way in which legislation doesn't allow us to raise capital in the same way as most of our competitors who are not mutuals or cooperatives. We have been working particularly hard to try and persuade our colleagues at a European level that the legislation which is now being considered by the European Parliament should be amended to enable that to happen. As a representative of a bank that's actually had a very good reputation because we did not need any structural support at all from the government during the crisis. One of the things that fascinates me is that our European banking comparators, who are mutuals or co-ops, do have the facility to be able to raise capital, to be able to sustain and develop their businesses without it affecting voting rights or in particular their ownership structures. And we want a similar facility in the United Kingdom, and whether that comes about through legislation in the UK or we believe at a European level, then that's what we want to achieve.
Lynne Woodcock, Managing Director of Anglian Community Enterprise. We became a community interest company on the 1st of January 2011. We're a staff-owned organisation, and staff really have the opportunity to influence what's happening. It's based on us becoming much more involved with the local community, staff being able to influence the organisation, us being able to reinvest our surpluses back into the local community. We have a staff council with staff representatives. That part of the organisation is chaired by the chairman, and it really allows staff to have a direct access to the board.
Hi, I'm Cliff Mills. I'm a Principal Associate at Mutuo and a consultant with Capsticks. I've just chaired a session where we've been looking at 3 new mutual organisations in social housing, community health services and youth mutuals, youth services. And we've been discussing these as the new public ownership of the future. These are all member-based organisations with democratic governance, and they're all constitutionally committed to trading for the public rather than private benefit. And they're all convinced that this is the future of public service for them, and this is the format for the future.
Mark Willetts, Policy and Communications Officer for Mutuo. We're here today at the Mutuals Forum. I've heard some very interesting discussions about the future of the sector. Some very good news about a number of mutual businesses which have grown very successfully in the last year despite the difficult economic circumstances. At the same time, there are a number of challenges for the sector, particularly around capital and also to do with regulations, and we'll be talking to the government and opposition parties over the course of the next year about these issues.
Hello, I'm Peter Hunt. I'm the Chief Executive of Mutuo. We've been going for 10 years now promoting mutuals, trying to represent the sector, bringing them together when they've got something in common to say to government, and to try to develop new mutuals to make the place look exciting and forward-looking for the future.
I can't think of a time in recent history where the mutual sector has been more relevant or more needed. The combination of economic circumstances and a real demand for change and a new way of doing things presents a huge opportunity. Our moment is now, and we need to think about how we may deliver commercial businesses differently, how we might deliver the public sector differently. Those challenges are huge. They require innovation, new thinking, use of new technology, new ways of doing things, but they're so worth addressing. We really must seize the moment and push forward to a new mutuality.
I'm Kevin Jaquiss. I'm a Director of Public Service Mutuals with the Co-operative. I'm here to talk about the mutual business detector. If you're a council, you've probably heard of the big society, for better or worse, and you're probably aware of the massive pressure to transfer services out of the state sector and into somewhere else. If you're a council, you may well feel that mutuals represent a potential answer to that as part of the big society. The difficulty you have is knowing which of the services, and you might have hundreds of services if you broke them down into small units, which of those services would actually make a mutual, and more particularly, which of them would make a business. The mutual business detector helps to give an answer to that question. It isn't the be-all and end-all, but it suggests to you which of your services might be worth looking at as a mutual, and it gives you a clear indication as to the suitability for being a mutual and the ease of achieving it. The Mutual Business Detector can be found via a link on the Public Service Mutuals website, which is on cooperative.coop/public service mutuals. There is also a pamphlet which you can obtain through Mutuo, and have a go.
I'm Kevin Ford, I'm the Chief Executive of FPM. We're working alongside Public Service Mutuals with the Cooperative to develop a model for a young people co-owned mutual in which young people are key stakeholders and part owners. We've been working on that independently first and then with the co-op movement since 2 years ago. And the first examples of that sort of co-op are now developing. And in particular, considerable amount of work going on in the London Borough of Lambeth, where the plan is to try to get a youth and young people services cooperative going starting next April. The key ingredients are that young people would be working with other stakeholders, the local community, local voluntary organisations, in a mutual structure which allows for membership of young people and other citizens alongside membership by organisations and by funders. And the end result is a multi-stakeholder mutual, probably not a million miles away from existing NHS trust structures, but more local, which would be capable of holding money and creating a critical mass for services for young people at a time when those services are under very considerable funding pressure. And it will potentially liberate young people to free themselves up to do more within the co-op structure. It incorporates both volunteers and paid staff, and it provides a vehicle for commissioning of voluntary organisations and community groups which would be part of the organisational co-op structure within it. So it provides a mechanism to both integrate services and to generate new momentum for services into the future. It's probably going to require a staged process with the establishment of some kind of intermediary stage where there's a holding company, either local authority controlled, or it could be put with a housing association or another local structure, before getting into a completely membership owned and controlled entity which can take the whole thing forward. And it provides a potential for young people to have a membership age 13 through to 19 in a local area, which is extremely dynamic, gives them a stake, and is integrating of all young people in the area. So it's in its early stages, but the signs are very positive, and I hope within a year or 2 years that there will be a growing movement of youth-led cooperatives around the country.
The Ownership Commission is trying to answer the exam question, what constitutes good ownership, and then develop what that might mean across the plethora of ownership types in Britain. Neighbourliness, custodianship, trusteeship are ideas that we want to stream through every ownership form, from the PLC to the cooperative, the family firm to the partnership. We aim to publish in January of 2012, and some months later, John Kay, commissioned by Business Secretary Vince Cable, is going to do a kind of slightly narrower report on short-termism in the financial markets and how ownership, or the lack of good ownership, helps to create it. So that the two reports together, one in January and one in July, will, I think, constitute a body of work that will really address the ownership question as it hasn't been done in Britain since the end of the Second World War.
Okay, my name's Gareth Swarbric and I'm the Chief Executive of Rochdale Borough-wide Housing. Currently, we're a wholly owned subsidiary of Rochdale Council, manage the council's housing stock, and for the last 2 years we've been on a journey which should culminate next March with us becoming the first tenant and employee co-owned housing association in the country. So this morning I've been at the forum involved in one of the breakout sessions, basically talking through the process that we've gone through with our employees and with our tenants and with our parent council in kind of turning our vision into reality. So I've kind of explained how we've learned from some of the existing models in social housing and in the wider mutual sector, some of the challenges that we've faced and some of the further work that we've got to do before we complete our journey.
I'm Paul Kalinauckas, Chief Executive of the Black Country Reinvestment Society. We're a cooperative, we run a small business loan fund. So it's based on mutual principles and the demand is huge out there. We all know how the commercial banking sector has let down small businesses. If you're a small business, it's virtually impossible to get bank finance. The market failure that's occurred means there's a clear playing area for us all. And the private sector hasn't piled in there to supply capital to small businesses. So I'd like to see some more cooperative small business loan funds set up. We can get capital from a number of different sources and we can actually create an alternative to the commercial banking sector. We've done it in the Black Country, we've expanded in Staffordshire. Why not now the rest of the country?
Hi, I'm Steve Prescott and I've been asked today to come down and talk to the Mutuals Forum. What have I talked about? I've talked about myself, my experiences and the adversity that I have faced throughout my life. Was it hard? Yeah, it's probably hard. It's hard public speaking, but you know, it's done now and I've really enjoyed it. So I hope that the people that listen to me today have took something out from it as well.
Des Benjamin from Simply Health. The biggest mutual we actually have is the state, because its job is to look after us and to manage a society, not just an economy, and that's an important difference. And in exercising its duties, the state could turn to mutuals who can be much more aligned to looking after multiple stakeholder interests. It can look after its staff, it can look after its customers, it can look after the communities in which it engages. And so particularly if we're thinking about public services coming out of the public sector, a brilliant place to put them is into the mutual environment where that kind of organisation can serve to deliver a service and a purpose really clearly and also fulfil the needs of the state to look after us as a society. So there's a great coordination between individuals' needs and the needs of our society exercised through mutuals. Quite exciting, isn't it?
This is Ian Mcdonald, former member of the board of Communicate Mutuality, and I just want to thank Mutuo for putting on yet another successful event, which of course as usual is emphasising the point which we're all trying to make, that mutual and cooperative businesses offer a very obvious alternative to the current investor-owned model of business, and one which is becoming increasingly relevant. All the more reason therefore why I'm calling on all delegates and organisations here to come to next year's International Cooperative Alliance Global Trade Fair, which will be held in Manchester from the 29th of October to the 1st of November as part of the International Cooperative Alliances and the UN's International Year of Cooperatives. It's a very suitable end to the celebrations of the International Year next year, and of course it emphasises and raises the profile of cooperative and mutual business and encourages cooperatives and mutuals to trade with each other, cooperating among cooperatives, as principle number 6 says. So please come along.
For the cooperative group, the United Nations Year of Cooperatives is a fantastic opportunity for us. What other business model would have a United Nations year named after it? Apart from anything else, it gives us a fantastic opportunity to talk about all things cooperative to our customer members and the communities that we serve. But what's really special is that at the end of the year, the whole cooperative world is going to be coming to Manchester. We're going to be hosting a celebration where we're expecting over 10,000 visitors from around the world, but also from around the UK, to come and celebrate all things cooperative. It will be things ranging from the power of cooperative enterprise right the way through to celebrating the different sectors where the cooperative movement has historically been strong and is developing increasingly. We hope it's going to be a lot of fun too. So I'd simply encourage all people involved in the cooperative and mutual sector to come and join us in Manchester on the 30th of October. It's going to be great.